Cameras are remarkable tools for the criminal justice system. Not only are they a great way of deterring crime, but a well-placed camera can provide all the evidence an officer needs to close a case. So in this video, we're going to be going over times that some of the most disturbing crimes ever committed were caught and discovered on camera. Linda Collins seemed like an unstoppable force of a woman. Growing up in Arkansas, she came to value hard work, and it was through this hard work that she eventually became the Arkansas State Senator. While the position kept her busy, Linda was never too busy to enjoy her life and dedicate time to her family. She married a man who shared her work ethic and had 2 wonderful children with him. She knew how to have fun and refused to let her smile drop from her face, even in the face of a messy divorce. Her happy attitude kept up the spirits of those closest to her and even earned her the title of the fun grandma amongst her grandchildren. She was clearly someone who liked to keep busy, as shortly after being voted out of her seat in the state senate, she found a potential new lobbying job in DC.
Moving out of my office today, I just want to say how humble I am to be your senator, how proud I was to serve you.
When she arrived home, her personal assistant and friend Rebecca Donnell was waiting for her at the airport to give her a lift back home. She had a conversation with her daughter over text before inviting her boyfriend Randall Wallace to spend a few hours with her. A few days later, her daughter Tate sent a picture of a new pair of shoes. However, Linda never responded. While Tate initially wasn't too worried because her mother had told her she'd be busy, she called her brother Butch after a few days of radio silence and asked him to do a wellness check. When Butch arrived, he noticed his mother's truck in the driveway and found nothing amiss about the house besides the fact that she wouldn't answer the door. Concerned but unable to do anything, he called his grandfather, who had a key to Linda's place, and asked him if he would check out the house the next day. His grandfather found that Linda had left her truck and the back door of her house unlocked, highly unusual for Linda, who always locked her car. It was only after he stepped into the kitchen that he decided to call his grandson. There was a massive stain on the floor, and while normally this would have been dismissed as a coffee stain, he didn't think that was the case. Something about it was off. Bush arrived at the house a few minutes later and started helping his grandfather check out the house. However, it wasn't until they were about to leave that Butch's grandfather smelled something strange coming from the pile of construction materials in the driveway, right beside Linda's truck. When Bush lifted the tarp covering the materials, he was met with a swarm of flies, the rancid smell of a decomposing animal, and his mother's corpse wrapped in a blanket, lying face down with her arms above her head. In complete shock and horror, the adrenaline rushed through him. He rushed to call his grandfather as soon as he found Linda, but refused to let him come near the scene as he dialed 911.
We've been trying to find her for the last few days, almost a week, and we've not heard from her.
What is your name, honey?
Butch Smith, I'm her son. We came to do a wellness check at her house. I think I found a body.
Okay, honey, we'll get an ambulance out of that way, okay?
When Sheriff Kevin Bell arrived on the scene, he noticed several mounting brackets around the house, the sorts that were usually used for cameras which it seems someone had removed. Other officers on the scene also noticed a broken plastic hair clip on the walkway leading to the house. The Arkansas Mobile Crime Lab informed the investigating officers that Linda had died from multiple stab wounds and that the stain in the kitchen was blood. Further investigation led some officers to discover a Clorox spray bottle with a smudge of blood on the nozzle, a clear indication that someone had tried to clean up their crime. But the question was, who? Based on the fact that there was no forced entry, the officers determined that Linda knew the person who had killed her, so they started interviewing close friends and family. Tim Logains, including her children Rebecca and her best friend, sobbed all throughout her interviews in complete disbelief over her friend's sudden death, and pointed to everyone she thought could possibly be a suspect. She seemed to be particularly focused on Randall Wallace, who she informed police Linda had argued with over shortly before her disappearance.
And I know you're upset, and I don't want to upset you anymore. I know, Miss Becky. I know it's hard.
She was my best friend. I started out working for her as her personal assistant.
I went out there and she told me all about the night before because the man out there, Rendell, spent the night with her. When I left, she was mad at me.
Why was she mad at you?
Because I was butting in her personal life. She was talking about how the night before it had taken Rendell like 4 hours to respond to her text and calls.
This is before he came over, I'm
Yes.
assuming. Okay.
And she was kind of upset about it, and I told her she had no right to be upset. She needed to slow down and take it easy and get to know him.
Well, that would make her mad. I would say, well, maybe
Linda
she's right
does
now.
not like.
Well, she's a senator. She's
Right.
telling people what to do, not being told
And
what
she
to do.
really is. She really is. You know, she was wondering if he had been with somebody else, and that's why he wasn't responding. And I just told her she was going over the top. You needed to stop.
Now, Tim was equally sure that Randall was responsible and confident he was the last person who would have seen Linda alive. However, the officers weren't too sure.
He was probably the last person to see her.
So they brought in Randall to check his story and found that his and Rebecca's stories weren't lining up.
We went down to the Eagles and had a few drinks and danced because we loved to dance, me and her both. So we hooked up and we went down there and danced and wound up spending the night in Jonesboro at a motel.
Okay.
She had claimed that after a final argument with Linda, the former state senator had decided she was going to confront her boyfriend, who she suspected was cheating on her after he had failed to respond to her messages for a few hours. However, according to Randall, the last time he'd seen Linda was in her home shortly after she got back, so he tried to message her a few times since then, but he never received a response.
She said, "Why don't you come over?" I said, "I'd love to." And we hugged and kissed, and she let me out the door and locked the door behind me.
Okay.
I went out the patio door.
Hold on just a minute.
Okay.
So she walked you out, walked me out
Mhm.
the patio door?
Yeah. But I thought, well, she's just in meetings, down in Little Rock. She'll get back to me later on. And then I never heard anything from her since.
The cops were getting close to the murderer, but they needed to check on one more person first, Linda's ex-husband Phil Smith. During their marriage, the two were considered a power couple with their wildly successful careers and numerous businesses. However, deep down, things weren't quite as they seemed. According to friends and family, Linda was terrified of Phil, and in the early 2000s believed he tried to kill her with mercury.
I'm going to tell you another thing. Linda was scared to death of him.
Scared of Phil.
Of Phil.
Linda was deathly afraid of Phil for whatever reason.
Everybody I talked to says she's scared to death of Phil.
She is.
She felt scared that he was going to do something.
Do you think your mom's scared of your dad? Was scared
Yes.
of your dad?
Yes.
You do?
Yes.
You really believe there was a
believe-
fear there?
I
It wasn't an act, it was a fear there.
I fully believe, firmly, with everything, believe that she was afraid of him.
She thinks Phil tried to kill her.
Linda told me that herself now and said Phil done it. Almost killed her.
I just can't believe that they'd let that go,
He's a judge.
What?
I keep thinking she's going to get mad at me for telling this stuff.
No. She wouldn't get mad at you, Vic.
Phil used to hit her.
According to Tim and Rebecca, they'd helped Linda set up a home security system to protect her from any potential danger from Phil. Now, he denied all accusations and said that while the divorce was bitter, he'd never been physically or emotionally abusive towards Linda or stalked her at any time. With all of this out of the way, the officers needed one more piece to complete their puzzle. Fortunately for them, Tay decided to do her own investigation. 2 memorials were held for Linda a few days apart, and during that time, Tay got a hold of her mother's work email, which received alerts from her home security system every time there was movement in the house. She discovered that on the probable day of her mother's death, there were several alerts and immediately informed the police. They gained access to Linda's security system account, hoping to review the footage, but found that someone had logged into her account and deleted the footage from the day of her murder. Changing tactics, the investigators contacted the company that ran Linda's security system, and within 2 days, they received all of the footage they needed. Hoping to arrest the murderer before Linda's second memorial, the officers combed through the footage. Something the killer hadn't realized about Linda's security system is that even after removing the cameras from their mounting brackets, they would still operate on their battery power. After processing through hours of footage from multiple cameras, the investigators finally found what they were looking for. Rebecca O'Donnell had been a suspect since her first interview. Not only was she unable to shed a single tear despite all of her sobs, but she couldn't seem to recall which day she'd gone back to their house, despite her husband informing officers that she'd gone over almost every day to knock on the door and check if Linda was home, and she claimed that she'd lost her phone.
Becky's been going by her house about every day, knocking on the door and, calling her and texting her and, hey, answer, we're getting worried.
I'm lost without my phone.
Bless your heart, I bet you are.
I think I have some screenshots in my text of her flight details.
Only for officers to pull up her phone records and discover that she'd been using her phone during the time she claimed to have lost it. Furthermore, Tate and Bush didn't seem to know Rebecca and Tim all that well. Butch claimed they had suddenly appeared in his mother's life during her divorce. He also revealed that money had started going missing from his grandfather's bank account without warning.
I talked to Tim and Becky, and I gotta tell you something, Butch. There's things that ain't adding up there either.
I felt like for a while there was something fishy between the two of them. I'd never heard of these people until divorce time, and all of a sudden they were all up there in their business and helping move furniture and do stuff. And I never met these people before. My grandpa just recently started seeing money coming out of his account that he didn't authorize. My mom wouldn't just take from my grandpa. That's not something that she's ever done.
A bit of information that didn't help Rebecca's case when she revealed that Linda had apparently trusted her so much that she allowed her to manage any financial business, including signing her name on checks.
A lot of times Linda had me sign checks or something, or go get her cash or something.
She was on her account where you could sign her check.
No, she would just have me sign her name.
Oh, you were signing her name?
Yeah, she would.
Oh, Becky, that was not a smart thing to do.
Detectives believe she'd been stealing from Linda for months, and now they had the final piece of the puzzle. After being thrown into the bottom of a bag, one of Linda's security cameras had settled at the perfect angle to capture the face of Rebecca O'Donnell and the blood-covered knife she had used to kill Linda. The police intercepted her before she arrived at the memorial, arresting her right outside the service. They brought her into the station for questioning and showed her a photo of herself holding the knife, which led to her immediately requesting a lawyer.
I'm gonna lay it all out there for you, okay? You're under the risk for the murder, Linda. You understand that?
We got you.
We got you.
We got video of you.
You didn't erase them all.
While she was in prison, she told her husband that the officers had doctored the footage to make her look bad, and he actually believed her up until her attorney made him sign an NDA after prosecutors offered to drop the death penalty. She pled guilty.
You got a lot of people.
I know that, honey. Baby, they're that good. They're that powerful. The stuff they have made up on me right now. If I was on the outside looking in, I would say, oh wow. Okay?
Not only had she lied to Tim, but she tried to hire her cellmates, who were supposed to be released soon, to kill Phil Smith and his new wife for whatever valuables they could find in their home after the job was done. Fortunately, the woman told the authorities and brought them proof of the conversation in the form of a fake note Rebecca had written for them to plant at the scene. She'd also admitted to her cellmates that it wasn't her camera, but then tried to argue that the knife was for a chicken. Rebecca accepted the plea deal and was sentenced to a total of 50 years in prison after being charged with first-degree murder, abuse of a corpse, and pleading no contest to 2 murder solicitation charges in Jackson County. While Linda Collins' case is very sad, the officers were quick and able to close it before a second memorial finished. A family could always rest easy knowing that while their mother, daughter, and friend had been taken from the Mali, she lived an incredibly full life. But the same couldn't be said for our next case. But before we continue, I want to tell you about Odoo, the all-in-one management software that provides entrepreneurs with a range of applications to simplify the day-to-day management of their business, including invoicing, accounting, project management, inventory, website creation, and so much more. The first app is free, quick, and intuitive, and I'll show you what I mean. You see, for example, I want to build a website to promote my email newsletter, and so with using the free plan, I can select the website builder, which gives me unlimited hosting and support, even though you don't have to pay, and there's no deadline, with the site never being taken down. You don't even have to worry about putting in bank information, so there's no bad surprises. And they also offer a free personalized domain name for 1 year. And once you have 2 or more standalone applications, you can then switch to a paid plan. So to build the website, it's really simple. All you gotta do is go on the website configurator, define your goals, choose the color palette, or insert your own logo, add pages and features, and then just choose the theme. And there you have it, the structure of your website. And the site builder is so intuitive and easy to use. There's no technical skills required. You just have to drag and drop blocks around. And you can customize each block, adding content like images, text, video, documents, and functionalities like animations on the blocks, changing typography, colors, image shapes, and the grid lets you lay out and organize your blocks. And if you want to get it done quickly, or you're short of any inspiration, they actually use AI to help generate text or reformulate parts of your own text, so that you don't have to spend so much time writing the stuff on your own website. And Odoo is also linked to Google Fonts, so you can have amazing design without having to do really anything. The Odoo website builder is an incredibly powerful tool for creating a website quickly, easily, and efficiently. And the best of all is that the first app is free of charge. So check out Odoo today using my link in the description below. Sweet, friendly, and determined to make a difference are a few things that come to people's minds when they think of Molly McLaren. After years of battling with bulimia, the 23-year-old had finally managed to pull herself out of her struggle and was working towards helping people going through the same thing she did through her blog posts, where she recorded her recovery process and posted motivational quotes. As one of her steps towards recovery, she started working to earn a degree in exercise, sport, and health education at the University of Kent in England, the same region she grew up in. Despite also struggling with anxiety, Molly made a point of embracing student life by actively hanging out with friends and joining societies and sport clubs. She was well on her way to recovery when she decided to give dating a try. She'd never had a boyfriend before, so she downloaded Tinder thinking this was a good idea, and started swiping. A tragically bad decision, as soon as she would match Joshua Stimson. Stimson lived 7 miles away from Molly, and the two connected over a shared love of fitness and his willingness to share about his bipolar disorder. Molly felt it was safe to meet him in person, and the two hit it off. As they got to know each other better, they began hanging out more and more, and Molly found herself falling for him. However, those around Molly could see what her rose-tinted glasses didn't let her. He was manipulative and possessive. Not only was he uninterested in getting to know anyone close to Molly, but he didn't seem to realize or rather care that he wasn't the only person in her life. He'd often ignore her boundaries by showing up at her house after she told him she was busy, then complained about wasting his time. When she asked for space because he was suffocating her, Joshua started insulting her and making her feel bad. The sad thing was, this was just the tip of the iceberg. No one knew how deep the manipulation issues actually ran. Not only did Joshua suffer from bipolar disorder, but he would often lie about suffering a depressive episode to keep Molly away from her friends and focus solely on him. He went wherever she went, going so far as to quit his job so he could stay with her for as long as possible, convincing her that she needed him around because of her own issues, which Molly started to believe. But thankfully over time, the rose-tinted glasses began to crack. Realizing that all they ever did was argue, Molly decided to try and break up with Joshua. While it didn't take long for him to guilt his way back into her life, Molly's second attempt at a breakup succeeded. After a horrible argument after her aunt's 60th birthday shattered the glasses completely, Molly stayed with Joshua until she could no longer stand it. She officially broke up at a friend's birthday celebration when she started falling into one of his moods. When Joshua realized she wouldn't give to his begging a second time, he took an aggressive turn. He started by harassing her online by posting screenshots of their conversations and accusing her of drug abuse. After her cousin showed her the posts, Molly, having blocked Joshua on everything, printed all the evidence and took it to the police on June 22, 2017, who didn't do anything besides asking Joshua to take down what he'd posted. They didn't see what was going on as harassment, and sent her on her way after achieving nothing. Funnily enough, Joshua went to the station to voice his own complaint about Molly the next day, claiming she was spreading rumors about him and ruining his reputation. Kent police were just as helpful to Joshua, also telling him just to take down the posts. A few days later, and after a bit more back and forth, Joshua decided that his posts weren't worth losing potential future customers over, and took down the posts, which the police quickly told Molly about. To them, this was an incident solved. Unfortunately for Molly, this would be the beginning of hell. While out with a friend the next day, Molly spotted Joshua on a date. Terrified out of her mind, but certain it was only a coincidence, Molly went home early. The next day, June 29th, she headed to Catherine Dockside Outlet, the gym she'd been visiting daily, to film a workout she was doing as a part of a new personal training course that she was enrolled in. While she started the video alone, she was soon joined by a familiar face. A little while after Molly arrived at the gym, a camera spotted Joshua heading up the stairs, before immediately turning around after spotting her through the open, and heading back down. Was he finally respecting her boundaries and deciding to leave her in peace? Well, not really, because more than halfway down, he turns around again, heads straight into the room, and starts working out next to her. From the moment she'd broken up with Joshua, nothing had been a coincidence. He wanted to punish her for rejecting him. With the help from a Tinder date he befriended, who was unaware what he was doing, he regained access to her social media and can now track every single move she made. A week before taking down the screenshots and accusations, he went to 2 different hardware stores to purchase a knife and pickaxe. All he needed was a moment alone with her, where he could make his move, and now he had it. Recognizing that she'd run into him too many times for this to be a coincidence, Molly decided to confront him, demanding to know if he was following her and why he wasn't at work. When he brushes her off by telling her that it was none of her business, she heads to a different part of the gym, where she sends a frantic series of texts to her mother and friend, who both tell her to go straight home. Joshua leaves a few minutes later, and Molly decides to head home believing it was all safe. Unfortunately, he's waiting for her. As Molly gets into the car, Joshua approaches with the knife he had purchased, pulls her door open and starts stabbing her like a man possessed, not stopping until he is sure she is dead. Then he calmly stepped away and waited for the police to arrive. Molly was declared dead at the scene at 11:43, having been stabbed more than 75 times. At the trial, Joshua pleaded not guilty due to his personality disorder, and the psychiatrist who assessed him after the incident backed his claim, determining that the killing had been out of his control and linking it to his mental illness and abandonment issues that were triggered by his parents' divorce, thus making him hypersensitive to rejection. However, another psychiatrist argued that he showed no signs of such a mental disorder and stated that Stimson was an immature, vain, and narcissistic man, before pointing out that he showed no remorse over Molly's death. Unfortunately for Molly's loved ones, Joshua was found guilty and sentenced to 26 years in prison. Shortly after the trial, her family opened the Molly McLaren Foundation, an organization that funds charities that help those with eating disorders. While her family will never get their daughter back and will always be haunted by the idea that if the police had treated her case more seriously, she might still be alive, they can at least still honor her memory through her foundation and rest easy knowing her murderer will never harm anyone else the way he harmed their daughter. Unfortunately, not every crime caught on camera brings closure to the victim's family. It's a relatively normal day in 2018 in Midvale, Utah, as Heather Milliam and her two daughters, 13-year-old Jocelyn and 6-month-old Ivy, drive up the girls' grandfather's place. With a hungry baby in the back and a car in need of a refill, Heather makes a stop for gas and snacks. Before heading in to pay, she asks Jocelyn to feed young Ivy and leaves her keys in the ignition so the girls can stay cool while she's gone. Always ready to take care for her little sister, Jocelyn hopped in the back seat and did everything her mother asked when the driver's side door closes. Believing it's her mother, Jocelyn doesn't think much of it until the car starts. She looks up and sees a strange man sitting where her mother should be. And just like that, he drives off without a word, and Jocelyn starts panicking. Meanwhile, Heather is inside watching her car drive away and assumes that her daughter is playing a prank on her. It isn't until the car turns down the street that she realizes something is very wrong.
I'm not gonna lie, at first I thought my daughter was, playing a prank. I'm like, what is she doing? And then I ran out and I started panicking.
Springing into action, someone in the store calls 911, and the police from numerous agencies begin the desperate search for the girls. Their kidnapper's not getting far if the officer can help it, so a few officers arrive at the gas station to see what happened, and to see if there's any witnesses. After they finish reviewing the footage from the on-site camera, employees identify the kidnapper as a homeless man who often hangs around the area. Unfortunately, they don't really know much else about him. Some people begin to wonder if he had just wanted to steal the car to make some easy cash, or if he had plans for the two children left behind by an unsuspecting mother. Back in the car, Jocelyn is terrified and unsure what to do. All she knows is that she can't let anything happen to her little baby sister. She screams at him to stop, but he doesn't do anything besides focus on the road. She then tries to negotiate with him, begging for him to let her and her little sister go, but he remains dead silent. At this point, she's running out of options, until she spots her mum's phone in the front passenger seat. She very silently and sneakily grabs the phone, and somehow does this without being seen by him. And as she pretends to remain as if nothing's happening, she secretly dials 911. She doesn't talk to them, fearful of how her kidnapper might react if he sees her on the phone, so instead puts the phone on the seat so the operator can listen to what's going on. Jocelyn then starts screaming for help, hoping the police will be able to track the device. However, she really doesn't know if anyone will find them. I mean, this is a long shot, just screaming on the phone without giving them any directions or advice. All she does is roll down the window, lean halfway out, and start screaming for help again, while the phone remains silent. When nobody responds to her cries, Jocelyn remembers her own phone and calls her dad. He picks up his phone in shock, seeing that his two little daughters have been kidnapped. So he pulls up the shared location app on his phone to immediately try and find his daughters, after she secretly explains the situation to him while still locked in the car. Fortunately, they're still in the area, and like any father would if they were in his place, he starts racing towards them as fast as he can, with one thought in his mind: how can he get them back and make sure they're safe?
And she's telling me she doesn't know where she's at, and I freaked out. My one thought was get to Joss, so I just put the pinpoint on her and ran out the door.
Assured that her father is on the way, but still unsure of how long he would take to get there, or whether the police will even find them at all, Jocelyn decides there's one last thing she can do. While she didn't want to cause an accident, she still needed to do something, so she started hitting the man's head as hard as he could while driving. Even with this, he still doesn't say anything to her. He still remains silent, just looking straight ahead at the car, no emotions seen whatsoever. And as she continues smacking him, he finally stops the car before taking off on foot. A patrol car then pulls up a few minutes later, and the girls are luckily reunited with their parents. Jocelyn was in shock. She was just about to be kidnapped, and God knows what could have happened to her. And while she was worried about whether the police would find her and her sister's kidnapper, her brain still hadn't fully registered that she could have almost died in this incident. She's taken away in complete disarray as they arrive at the hotel that evening. But who was this man doing it? The potential kidnapper? Well, fast forward 24 hours and the police get a call about a man at a bus station, bragging about a carjacking and kidnapping he'd just been responsible for. His name is Charles Brandon Peterson. and the officers are quick to bring him in for questioning. And that's when they find out that he is a parole fugitive for the long list of convictions, including 16 felonies, and the police identified him as the Milliams sisters' kidnapper, a task made far easier by the fact that he was wearing the same clothes as the day before. When he was taken into custody, he initially refused to talk.
How are you?
I'm good, I got some secret.
Okay, no worries. My name's Heather Lynn. What's your name?
I got to say you.
But once the officer read him his rights, he was a lot more willing to share the details of what actually happened during the kidnapping. While he may not have seen the girls initially, Jocelyn made him aware of their presence very quickly, and he took the car anyway, not caring that he was literally kidnapping 2 girls. And there's no telling what might have happened to the girls if Jocelyn hadn't spooked him enough to get the car to stop. But thankfully he was arrested and charged with vehicle theft and 2 counts of kidnapping. And the American Red Cross would later honor Jocelyn as a hero, though during her interview she revealed that she didn't see herself as a hero and that she was now suffering from very intense car sickness due to the incident, constantly terrified that this incident would repeat itself, giving her permanent PTSD. And of course it's terrible how much this incident has affected her, but compared to some of the other stories that we've spoken about on this channel, it's incredibly lucky that nothing else happened, and even better that Jocelyn reacted the way she did in the heat of the moment.